Hey guys, it's Ian here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're going to be doing our last video for the month of January. We're going to do our wrap-up video. So let's start with the watch list here. I'm going to skip through things that I already talked about in my check-in video. I'll just mention them briefly, maybe talk a little bit about them, but I don't want to focus on them, right? So, Harry Potter 2, not the best movie. I like the book better. That's basically more or less what I said before, so moving on from there. The One Piece live action is really good. I really love it. I need to do a video talking about like how good it is because it works phenomenally as an introduction to this world. It worked great for me in the sense that I got to share something I love, One Piece, with my family who would never have watched or read One Piece at all otherwise, right? So I really appreciated it. I like from that perspective, I think this is a 10 out of 10 show. In terms of adapting stuff, I think it's like a 9 out of 10. I think it does a great job. So I'll do a video for it later on this month in February. So yeah, Rebel Moon. The more I think about it, or the more time passes since I watch it, the less I think about it, and so I think that it's not really an effective like franchise starter, if that makes sense. It's an effective movie in the sense that I needed something to take my mind off my reality for 2 hours, and Rebel Moon succeeds at doing that. So it focuses, or it succeeds at the basics of keeping me entertained for 2 hours, but it doesn't really succeed at creating a franchise or creating an idea or a world that people are striving to get into, right? So, you know, your mileage may vary there, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's fine. Percy Jackson, season 1. At this point, I've watched 7 episodes. I did that one video that was really popular, so thank you guys very much for watching that video. And that video was like, it was about how I think it's a good show. Like, it's doing a good job at adapting things, or at least I thought so at the point. But it's not hitting right for me, and I thought that I was the issue. However, the vast majority of people seem to agree with me that it's not really doing that great of a job at adapting something or adapting the Percy Jackson books. And it's also just not that good at like being enjoyable as a show. And so I think that this is a double failure in that sense. But also the thing that I think causes a lot of issues for fans of Percy Jackson is that Rick Riordan is intimately associated with this reboot, with this, I was going to call it a reboot, but with this adaptation, and somehow it is still going off the rails and becoming something that it wasn't initially. And I think that is because ultimately, and I think this is coming from watching some interviews with the guy that made the Cradle series, ultimately authors sometimes want to go back and make modifications to their series, make things that they think are better, that make their series stronger. However, with something like Percy Jackson, that's about 25 years old, something that is so special and important for so many adults at this point, that was like the series, right? Like the thing that that made their childhoods better. I think that changing it, making it more modern, is actually kind of bad. It's actually hurting the show. That's my thought process. I don't know if you agree or disagree with me. It is what it is, but I think that some of the changes that are being made to the show are kind of unnecessary because they're not really like changing the show for the better. They're just like a different version of the same events. And in that sense, in that case, it's more like, why'd you bother to change this if the end result is still going to be the same? Like, does that make sense? Like, it's one of the things where, like, you fuck with it to fuck with it without actually making it better. Why would you do that? Like, it's basically that idea. Also watch Berlin season 1, Berlin season 1. It's good. It's not as good as Money Heist, but it's enjoyable. I watched Iron Claw. This is a A24 wrestling movie. It's about the history of this Von Eriksen family, I think is what they're called. And it was good. They shouted out my university in the movie. I thought that was fun. It was interesting. And it's basically a home related movie to me. Like, I haven't lived in Dallas many years. I've only lived here about 6 or 7. And I guess that is a significant portion of my life. But my home is Houston. However, the movie Iron Claw focuses on a family of wrestlers from here in Dallas. And so it felt very familiar to me, but also very weird and odd. It was like A24 movies in general just kind of like are weird to me. And this one was too. But I liked it. I thought it was an enjoyable movie. However, I'm not sure that it's one that I will watch more than once. It kind of gets relegated to the same kind of area in my life as like Killers of the Flower Moon, where it's like I can understand and appreciate that this is a phenomenal piece of artwork, but I don't want to watch it more than once, maybe twice in my life. Like, it's not something that I am wholly interested in re-experiencing because it's not like fun, if that makes sense. Like with Killers of the Flower Moon, I was very viscerally affected by the fact that these like little Native American ladies that look very similar to my great aunts were being killed left and right? With Iron Claw, I think that the movie is just like a series of unfortunate, fixable, but ultimately harrowing events. And it's not fun to watch. It's very interesting and emotional and like compelling, but it is not enjoyable, if that makes sense. So those are my thoughts on that. I watched Echo Season 1. This is a Marvel Spotlight show. I don't really know what that means. However, I found this to be really enjoyable. I thought this was great. I don't know too much about the Echo character. I know that this is not how the Echo character is in the comic books, but honestly, at this point, I'm kind of beyond caring about that. It's not something I particularly cared about when I was younger, and it's not something that matters to me all that much now, unless they change like Spider-Man. Fundamentally, maybe I'll care about that, but I don't really care about, characters that no one knows, right? So I enjoyed the show. I thought it was an interesting look at Native American culture that isn't like romanticizing it. I mean, I guess it does romanticize it a little bit, but it is ultimately just a normal group of people that live, in a normal society, and they happen to have a power that is related to their, Native Americanness. That is not that different from any other superhero, right? Like, I like that. I thought that was enjoyable and interesting. It was a cool concept. However, I think that the ending was bad. I feel like it was doing great for 4 episodes, and then at the 5th one, they were like, fuck, we're running out of cash here. We need to finish this quickly. Let's wrap it up some way. And I don't think that basically giving the Kingpin free therapy was the right way to end the threat, right? So I don't know. I think that was a weird way to end the show, but I mean, it worked. It was fine. It was pretty low level in terms of powers, so that was cool. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just unsure about how I feel about the ending. Then I watched Invincible Season 2 Part 1 of 2, I think. And awesome. I really like the show. I think it does a great job at being a good adaptation. I'm realizing now that they moved a lot of stuff, but ultimately the stuff that they moved doesn't really change anything. So I think that it was well done. Like, I think that they did a good job at moving pieces of story to different areas in order to get the character growth at a faster pace than they would have otherwise, right? And it also is nice to kind of like have villains that you can easily say, okay, we dealt with this guy. It's not important anymore. Let's move on. Because the Invincible comic book, although they do that, those same villains come back later on and become like nuisances again. And so I think that the way that season 1 handled things and the way that it seems like they're continuing to handle things here in season 2 is interesting. I'm not sure what they're going to focus on for the second half of the season. The multiverse thing is still kind of like up in the air, and they are moving the Viltrumite thing a little bit up ahead. So I'm curious to see where we're going to land. It might actually end up being about the same as the comic book, but the changes are nebulous. They're making my ideas about the series kind of nebulous. I'm not really sure where I'm landing on it, but I do like it. I think it's a good adaptation. I think it does a great job at telling this story to people that might not have picked up the comic books otherwise. And I think that that's really, at this point, all you can ask for from an adaptation. Like, as long as it does a good enough job at keeping the essence of the series, and it also lets you share this experience, this story, with people that would have not read it otherwise, I think that's my minimum threshold for adaptations at this point. And that basically means that, you know, most of them succeed, except for The Wheel of Time, because I fucking hate that adaptation. It's so bad, but we're not going to talk about it. But yeah, moving on. I also watched Monsters or 103 Dragon Damnations or whatever the stupid, long-ass, unnecessary title was for the new One Piece prequel episode. And I liked it. I thought it was nice, but I felt robbed when the cut on the dragon's neck was not shown. Now, I don't really remember if it was shown in the Monsters manga. Actually, let me just double check. I can check it because I have the Mexican edition right here. So he kills this guy pretty easily, and I think they did a good job with that part. But when it comes to chopping down the dragon's head, I feel like they missed. I feel like this scene was not as good in the animation as it was here, and I think that is a mistake. I felt robbed. I felt like, damn, that is the good part of this episode, the whole thing that this was leading to, and it was a black screen. I didn't like that. Now, I could be wrong, but that is what I distinctly remember, and so if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments, because, you know, I don't want to do a big oopsie when I do a review for it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it was fine, but it wasn't really what I was expecting out of it. I felt like it should have been a movie, something that you kind of build up, maybe build up where Ryuma comes from, maybe build up some of the plot with the bad guys, and then have them have like a long duel, and then finally have the battle with the dragon, right? Like, I feel like adapting it straight up as it was from the manga was maybe not the right play. Like, I feel like that was a wasted effort, if that makes sense, because it's almost exactly the same. So there's very little value in doing that, because you could just add that chapter to the next volume of One Piece and it would have been the same as that, right? So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that. And then finally, the last thing I watched this month was Real Steel. So this is an old movie. It's from 2011. It's a little bit younger, or actually it's a little bit older than Pacific Rim, but it is, in my mind, one of the best sci-fi movies I watched growing up. Like, obviously Star Wars is the top of the line, like the best sci-fi movies, but it's different. They're like, Pacific Rim and Real Steel are low fantasy, high sci-fi kind of stories, right? Like, they're very much about a very simple, very easily defined sci-fi idea. Robots fighting. Real Steel is about boxing, and the other one is about fighting kaijus. Now, the kaiju one does definitely go more into fantasy, a lot more, but Real Steel is it feels so grounded. And although the child actor is a bit cringy, especially now that I'm an adult and I don't find myself filling the shoes of the child in my mind anymore, he is cringy, but it's such a good story, man. Like, Real Steel is a phenomenal film. Like, it does everything it sets out to do. It tells a nice, compelling sports story. It tells an interesting story about family and about kind of redeeming this horrible person that is the Hugh Jackman character. And it's about finding family, you know, after kind of like estranging yourself from them. I think it's really, really good. I love the movie. I tried to share it with my roommate. He actually was bored the whole time, and I definitely understand why. Like, I think that this is a movie that if you're not in the right headspace or at the right age, it won't hit. But because I was at the right age and at the right mindset and at the right moment, it hits, and it is now in like part of my like psyche, my idea of like a good movie, right? And it's a phenomenal movie, like that and Pacific Rim, and I don't know, I can't think of anything else that I remember deeply from when I was a child besides Pirates of the Caribbean. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, especially the third one, and then Pacific Rim and Real Steel are like my top movies, right? From when I was a child. But I don't know. What do you guys think about Real Steel? Have you guys seen it? I recommend you do. It's on Netflix right now. I think that it goes away soon, so watch it as soon as you can. And let me know what you thought down below. So yeah, that's my watch list for now. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so let's move on to what I read. So in terms of books, I only read one, and that is Conan, The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian. I read the second half of this book, and it's phenomenal. I really love Robert E. Howard's work. I think it's amazing. I might take a little pilgrimage down to where he's from. It's actually kind of near here. It's about 2 hours from here, I think. Since I live in Texas and Robert E. Howard is from Texas, I might just go to the town where he's from. Not because there's anything special about the town. Like the town, I don't think they even have a Robert E. Howard museum. I think they might. They have one for Selena. There has to be one for Robert E. Howard. But I just want to see where he grew up. I just want to kind of go through this area that is, you know, unequivocally connected to Robert E. Howard. I want to see if I can kind of connect with him in some way as well. Because I really find this work to be amazing. Like, there's some issues. There's definitely, especially at the end, there's like two stories that I don't like. One of them is like overtly racist, even though it's also like a Tarzan story. And so in my mind, it almost feels like unfair that the Barosian story, the story that is most similar to the author that inspired Robert E. Howard, Edgar Rice Burroughs, is also the one that most clearly shows like the negatives of Robert E. Howard and of Burroughs and of the time period that they're from, right? Like, it is the most Tarzan-esque story that is in this book. It's also the most racist one. It's The Veil of the Lost Women, and that is sad to me. Like, that sucks. But also, everything else is great. Every story is enjoyable and cool. There's some stories that blew my mind. Like, The Tower of the Elephant, phenomenal. The Frost Giant's Daughter, very good, very interesting. Very dark, too. Like, ultimately, what you're dealing with is a young man that is, like, angry at the world, but also at this specific woman that is like a fae spirit, and he's trying to take her over, right? He's trying to ruin her, to not say like the R word on on YouTube, and he can't because she calls down other spirits, and it's really interesting. Like, it's messed up, but it's also like a really good story. Like, something about it is great. The Queen of the Black Coast, phenomenal. It's this exploration of love between these two kind of fucked up individuals. Not fucked up emotionally. Like, I think they're pretty well off emotionally, but like fucked up as in like despicable people, right? Conan is not a good man. Like, Conan is like a savage and a horrible person and a thief and has all of these problems. But also, there's something about him that is good, right? And the same thing with Bellet. And so their love in this story is really, really interesting. And then Zuthal of the Dusk. This is a story that almost feels like relevant to us now. It's about these people, these special people. I think they're supposed to be like Asian-esque, and they have this drink that gives them immortality. And so they also use this drink to go into these dreams, into this non-real world. Almost you could call it a virtual world. And they spend all of their days wasting away on that instead of on reality. And that is very similar to what we experience today, right? Like, all of us are on our phones all the time. We're not immortal or anything, but the kind of basic concept is still there. And I think that it is interesting and horrifying and really crazy that someone from 1930 could come up with this idea, right? Like that could almost gaze into the future, see what we're gonna become, and write about how it's ass and it's so bad. And then we still did it. I don't know. It's really interesting. Like, Robert E. Howard is a great writer. He has this like thunder to him, this like rolling energy through his stories that is really great. Like, I don't know. I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. So that's the only novel that I read. I did start reading like the first few pages of Unsold. I read a tiny little bit of Tarzan and a little bit of the Jungle King book that I mentioned last time, which is this haremlet story about this professor and his college class that get lost on this island, to get transported through this like wormhole portal underwater, and they end up in this kind of like Pleistocene era kind of tropical island. And I'm not really liking it too much. I don't know. Something about it doesn't work for me, so I don't think I'm going to finish reading it. I will push through eventually, but I'm not interested in finishing it right now, which is kind of sad because I really like the haremlet stories that focus on dinosaur stuff, and The Jungle King is one of those, one of the 2 or 3 that I can think of, and I was hoping that would be good. And I mean, I got through 20% of the book, so there's still quite a bit to go, but it's just not hitting the same way. So, I don't know. Michael Scott Earl maybe is the only one that's good at writing dinosaur stories. I don't know. So yeah. Otherwise, let's look at comic books, and let's look at the collected editions first. So these are going to be out of order, but here's Asterix. I really had a good time with this. I really enjoyed myself. I thought that it was cartoony and ridiculous and punny. Not necessarily funny, but it had a lot of puns. And I had a good time with it. I was enjoying reading this. I had a positive reaction to it. It wasn't necessarily laugh out loud funny, which, you know, if you hear people talk about it, they might say that. They might give you that impression. And I don't think that that is the right impression to give people. However, it is enjoyable. It is an all ages kind of fun to it that I really like. I think that, honestly, the best part about it is probably the really beautiful cartoon-esque art, right? So I recommend it purely for that alone. I mean, these are not very expensive books. There's, you know, these are $15, but you can probably get them for less than 10 if you're lucky. Probably usually for about $10 to $12. And they're paperbacks. They're not that big, and they're easy to read, enjoyable to read. And these are fun to kind of experience, even if they're not the most like funny thing, right? Like, they're supposed to be a comedy strip, and I don't really think that they're that funny. But I think it's just because of my age, and maybe not even because of my age, but because of where I find myself mentally. Like, you know, if I read this in 3 months, I might find it hilarious. But right now, I don't think that it's that funny, right? So, yeah, but it's humorous. So, oh, I just showed you nothing. Sorry. Here. So I recommend it if you guys are interested in it. I think it's good. What else? Then I read Calimán. This is a Mexican comic book. It's kind of crazy to think about it, but this is a Mexican comic book. This may be one of the greatest Mexican superheroes or Mexican comic book characters to come out of, you know, Mexico ever. He was originally a radio show character, like the Shadow, basically, in the 1920s or 30s. Eventually, he got so popular that people decided that it was time to make it more accessible, and so they decided to make comic books. These were printed in, you know, shitty paper. They were printed in sepia tones, so they were printed in basically black and white, but instead of black, it was actually this like brown-red color. And it was these super sprawling, ongoing, huge stories. Most of them, most story arcs lasted about 20 to 25 issues. They were very big. There were so many of them. Calimán got so popular that it transcended Mexico. It got to Colombia, where it became really, really big. It got to Peru, where it also became really big. I think Antonio Blanco, one of the friends of the channel, was mentioning that you could even get it in New York back in the, back in the day, I guess in like the 80s or 90s. And it's a huge thing. However, the funny thing is that nothing about this character is ultimately Mexican. This is basically a British guy that ends up in India, that becomes like this like Tibetan monk, that then becomes friends with the son of the last pharaoh of Egypt, and this child, his name's Soline. He and Kaliman are basically adventurers. They're kind of like an Indiana Jones type character, but Kaliman also has what I would call like psionic abilities, basically. He has telepathy and immense body control, and he can fake his death by controlling his breathing. He has all of these mystical, artsy kind of like things to him, but he's not a superhero. He doesn't have powers. He is the pinnacle of man, basically. He is like Batman, I guess, in that sense, with like a little bit more mysticism thrown in. And nothing about him is quintessentially Mexican except its origin. And that is so weird and so interesting. And it's kind of crazy that he is like the greatest Mexican comic book character, and he's actually like Indian, or like based on Indian mythology and ideas, right? In this one, in this book specifically, this is a relaunch. This is a new version of the title after many years of it being a dormant series. This is the reemergence of Kaliman. It tells a new origin story that kind of really delves into this kind of like mythological origin. It basically, Kaliman is a prophesized child that is going to be the next leader of this cult of Kali that are basically protectors of the light, right? And he has to fight against the dark version of Kali, because Kali is supposed to be this like Indian or Hindu goddess, and she has two sides to her. I don't know if this is true, but that's what they tell you in the comic book. She has Kali the dark, or Kali the black one, who is like a death goddess, basically, and Kali the light, which is a justice goddess, right? And so you have this like dichotomy, this like godly dichotomy, like God and the devil in the same person. And so you have two different cults of Kali. Kaliman belongs to the light-sided one, and there's this dark-sided one. And the dark-sided one is led by this guy called Mahakalam, who is basically he's a demon, essentially. He is a four-armed dude. It's this guy right here, and that's Kali the Dark, and that's Kaliman's mother, and that's Kaliman himself, right? And so he's prophesized to be the child that will eventually grow into the hero that needs to destroy this dark Kali. And so we get to see kind of his journey through life. Actually, before his life, we get to see his father and his teacher Rudra meet, and his father meets Rudra's sister, who is this beautiful young Indian lady, and so they join, and out of them comes Kaliman, who is initially called Siddhi after Siddhartha Gautama, I think is his name, like the guy that eventually becomes Buddha. And then he goes off to Tibet, and he does these trainings with these monks, and eventually he becomes leader of this this country called Kalimatan, I think. And eventually he has to, fulfill his destiny. And so he destroys Mahakalam and brings an end to the darkness of Kali. And that's basically where the story ends. It's a new beginning. There might be more stories to come after this. We're not really sure. There has been a reprinting of old Kaliman comic books in Mexico. I will try to get my hands on them because I actually really enjoy this. And I think the history of Kaliman, to me, is more interesting than the character, actually. But I think it's interesting and fun and cool, and I want to read more of it. So, then I read all of Invincible 3. This is the Ultimate Collection. This ends at chapter 35, and it also includes an issue from the pack. And I also read about half of Invincible number 4, which is up to issue 41 out of 47 that are in this. That's basically where the end of the third arc is. And so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to touch Invincible again until I get more of these collected editions. And since they were pretty out of print because of the resurgence in popularity thanks to the animated show, I think it's going to be a while before I get more of them. But hopefully by the end of the year, I finish collecting Invincible because I really love this story. I really want to read all of it, and I really want to own all of it. So, that's it for the collected comic books. Let's look at the single issues. So, Let's start with the oversized ones here. I have 6 issues of The Forged. And I actually recorded the reviews for this earlier today, so you're going to see me with the same pink shirt in that. But these are 2 different arcs, 3 issues per arc. So here's The Forged number 1, and number 2, and number 3. Here's number 4. I really like that cover. Here's number 5. And here's number 6, and that is the end of The Forge for now. In April, a new arc starts, so I'm going to get more Forge issues, and I actually need to get bags and boards that fit this, and that fit other things that are going to come here soon. Once Savage Sword of Conan starts releasing, I'm going to need to bag and board that as well, so I think I'm going to have to make an investment here and buy a pack of bags and boards for oversized comic books, which I really don't want to do because the price of boards is ridiculous, man. Like, they are so expensive. It's kind of crazy. I've been trying my best to not buy any for longest while because I'm running out. I think I only have 1 left and for regular issues. And I really don't want to buy more because it is such a crazy expense compared to everything else. Like, it's about the same as buying a collected edition of something, or like a trade paperback, and that is a crazy amount of money for what it is. Like, ultimately, it's just a way to store things. It should not be that expensive, but because of the paper situation that we have, it's what it is, right? So yeah, I don't know, it sucks, but that's not really here or there. Let's actually focus up here. So here's the last things I bought last year that I read over the break. So here's Red Sonja number 5. I actually read this before the break. However, when I came back, I realized that I had not made a review for it, so I had to reread it. Here's Transformers number 3. I love this. I really love that story. I think it's great. Here's Rogue Sun number 17. This is a great issue. Here's Sacrificers number 5. Really good plot twist here, but after reading number 6, I don't think I'm going to continue collecting it. I think I'm going to trade weight and collect it that way. I think that is the better way to collect Rick Remender works. I'm not really sure, but I feel like that is the best way for me, right? So yeah, here's Sheena, Queen of the Jungle number 4. I really like this cover, and I also find this story to be much better than I initially thought. So that's actually interesting. That usually I feel like these Dynamite Cheesecake series kind of decline over time, and actually decline quite quickly. Especially like Barbarella, that was the last one I read. That one was 5 issues long, and within the 2nd issue, I was already thinking that it was bad. So I think Sheena is good. It's really interesting that it goes up, that it is trending upwards instead of downwards. So I'm very happy about that. Hopefully we get more Sheena works, although I would like them to be different from this because I don't think that was like the best plot, right? So yeah, here's Knights of the Zodiac number 3. I really love this. However, it makes me angry that it's not an oversized book like it is in France. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. So yeah, here's Dawn of DC Blue Beetle. I love this series. I think it's great. I really am enjoying reading it. It's nice that I got into Blue Beetle when I did, when basically Blue Beetle was coming into a resurgence, right? I watched the movie. I watched it with my parents. We watched it with Spanish subtitles, I think. My mom loved it. My dad thought it was fun. I got that poster. I got Graduation Day, and I got the new series. I think it was the right moment for me to get into Blue Beetle, and I'm really loving it. So yeah, here's all the stuff that I bought this year when I came back to Dallas. So here's Shift. This one is really cool, although I think that the way that it's done is weird, and I'm also not really sure that this is like what came out in the Image Celebration issues from last year, the anthology series. So I'm curious about how that works. If you guys are aware, let me know down below. I thought this was a collection of those, but I remember reading some of them, and I don't think that those are. I mean, I might be wrong. I could be remembering wrong, but I don't know. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. Here's Unnatural number 2. I love this washed out cover. I mentioned it yesterday in the haul video. Here's Wonder Woman number 4. Love this. I've seen some people get angry about Wonder Woman today on Twitter. I think because the Trinity special showed up and there was an extra story there. I'm not going to buy it, but I might end up reading it online somewhere. But I think it's ridiculous to get so angry. Like, Tom King has shown through 5 issues that he's good at handling this character, that he's doing a good job. If he wants to deviate a little bit, leave him alone, man. It's only 1 issue. It's not even a main continuity issue, right? It's like a side story. Let him cook, right? Let him do what he's doing and see what happens, right? Like, don't get mad immediately over something so trivial. I don't know. I think it's maybe just because I'm not that attached. I might disagree. You know, if it was like Spider-Man, I might get angry, but I don't know. Here's Green Arrow number 7. I like this one, but I feel like they did a big disservice to this issue by setting it up as Oliver goes after Waller, because he didn't go after her at all. Here's Hexagon Bridge number 4. I love how this looks, but again, I hate that it's the wrong size. Here's Blue Beetle number 5. I love the series. Beyond Real number 1. I mentioned this yesterday, but this was given to me for free so that I could decide if I wanted it or not. And I decided that I didn't want it because I think that the story is better set up for trade. And I feel like I'd be confused and kind of frustrated reading it month to month. So I decided not to do that. Here's Sacrificers number 6. Good ending. Really interesting how it all kind of gets set up. But not that strong for my taste. So yeah, here's No One number 7. Yes. I think this is the penultimate volume. I hope it ends soon because it's getting to the point where I really can't justify continuing to buy it because it kind of feels like it started off really cool as this like Batman Year One type thing, and then it just started taking forever, and I'm not really feeling the drama, so it is what it is. Here's Rebel Moon number 1. I mentioned that the movie is not really a franchise builder, and that is correct. However, I bought this, or I ordered it ahead of time, thinking that I would like the movie. I did like the movie, but not that much. And so now, after reading this, I actually think that I like this better than the movie. And so I decided to finish collecting it. It's only 4 issues, so it should be easy to do. Here's number 5 for Wonder Woman, and I love this cover. I think it looks great. Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, a phenomenal start to the series. It was so good. I love that I was super invested in this without any Spider-Man. So yeah, I thought that was great. Here's Conan number 6. I like this cover a lot. I don't really like this arc all that much. I think that compared to the first arc, it's weak. And I don't like the artwork too much. And I keep saying this, and I will continue to say it as long as I can, because I don't like the colors. I think the artwork is phenomenal. I think it looks great. However, the colors don't work for me. However, at the same time, it's like, well, you can't transition from a full color comic book to a comic book that has no color, or that is a black and white color, like black and white style, just for this arc, right? Like it's not possible to do that. However, I wish they put a different colorist together with Doug Braithwaite. So yeah, here's Transformers number 4. Really good stuff there. Hexagon Bridge number 5, which ends the series for now. And Green Arrow number 8, and this is an unnecessarily crowded cover. I don't really like how this looks at all, but it's fine, I guess. So, yeah, I think that is the end for the comic books. This is running along. Sorry, I apologize. I feel chatty today. So, moving on to the comic books, here's Kuroha Nijisuke. This is a one-shot manga. However, I have realized that there's actually a second series that follows these same characters by the same author and the same work. However, it has not been published anywhere besides Japan, which kind of sucks. Hopefully, Kamite brings it to Mexico later, but I don't think this sold as much as they would have liked, so that's why they haven't done it yet. I'm not really sure. But it was a good story. It's really similar to Undead Unluck, if you guys are aware of what that is. Here's Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid in color number 2. I really love this cover, and I also really like the interior. However, I'm lacking context for a lot of these stories, and so it didn't hit as much as the first one did, since I was aware of most of the stories in that first one initially, because I read the first 3 volumes of manga. However, I still love this series. I love the coloring. I think it looks phenomenal. I think it looks really beautiful. And there is a few stories here that I really loved, that I thought were really, really great. So if you're a fan of the series or just are interested in checking out, I recommend that you check it out through this. I think it's honestly, probably bang for your buck, a better purchase than buying the first 3 volumes and deciding if you like it based on that. Just pick up the first in color volume, which is going to be cheaper than buying 3 of the normal ones, and decide if you like it or not from there, right? So, yeah, here's Hitomi-chan Shy with Strangers number 6. I really like this story. I honestly don't remember what happened here, but I also don't feel like I need to. I just know that I have good vibes with this. And the vibes here are different from Komi, so that's also why it's attractive to me, because, like, It gives me the same comfort food feeling, that kind of like nice like cocoon of safety when I'm reading, without being exactly the same as Komi. And I think that that is important for me, right? So yeah, here's Komi 27. This was the Among Us episode, and it was pretty fun. I liked it. I also really love this cover. I think it's really, really pretty. She looks like a watermelon or something. I don't know. I think it's cool. Here's Boys Abyss number 3. This is a depressing, wretched story, and it's also really enjoyable to read. It's one of those like can't look away from the car crash type things, and I really like it. So there you go. And finally, probably my favorite story that I read this month, besides Conan, is Bright Story numbers 5 and 6. We finally finish up with the twins. They finally got married, so their story is no longer that important. And we come back to, what's her name? Fuck, I forget her name. To, Amir's story. Sorry, I always forget her name because I grew up around a lot of Turkish people, and Amir is like a male name for Turkey. And so I never think of attaching Amir to a female character, right? So, I mean, it doesn't really matter overall, but I always forget her name because of that, because I don't think of Amir as a feminine name. Although I guess it might be. Like, there's nothing about it that is strictly male from my understanding of it. So, yeah, but I love this series. I think it's amazing. I do want to get Emma and the Scribbles books as well, like the other Kaori Mori works. However, these are already hard enough to purchase as it is. I don't really need to add another very hard to get, also very expensive series onto all of my list, right? So I think I'll wait it out for now. Although at the same time, the Emma books are famously known for going out of print and staying out of print for a long time. So maybe I should get those first and then get the Bright Story ones later. I'm not really sure. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'm kind of always struggling with this idea myself. And so some guidance or some input would be nice from you guys. But those are all of the things that I read and watched this month. Let me know what you guys watched and read this month down below. Let me know what your favorite thing that I talked about was. What was the most interesting thing that I said? Let me know that in the comments. And thank you guys very much for watching this video, for paying attention to my dopey channel, as Michael K. Vaughn says, and for sticking around. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and see you guys later.